want us to be looking at the name in terms of not just the actual pronunciation of the name, but I want you to look at it as a title. We're referring to someone by their title, their authority, their reputation is all wrapped up in the idea of the name, their identity. Okay, so when you say Steve Berkson, and someone else was standing up here and it wasn't me, you would know, well, wait a minute, but there's an identity that goes with Steve Berkson. Well, there's also an identity that goes with Yeshua. There's an identity that goes with Moses. There's an identity that goes with different people that we kind of know when we mention them. It identifies who they are in a much more full way than just being their name. Okay, so it has to do with their identity. It has to do with lineage, because there are people that bear the name, and it has to do with like a lineage, a part of a family connection. It has to do with belonging to, possessing, or ownership. And so, you know, my children are bearing my name, and they're going to bear that name through generations if we have generations' time. And so there's a lineage part of that as well. This is why we are looking forward to be called children of the living Elohim, because then we become part of a family and a lineage. What I'm asking you to do today, just like I've asked you to do with the grace teaching and the salvation, all these different teachings that we've done to help reset our lexicons, is I want you to do the same thing here with the idea of the name and ask yourself, the definition that I may have had before, does it actually fit? So if it's about the pronunciation or getting the actual spelling and the sound of the name right, let's see how that works here. Our fathers in the heavens, let the pronunciation of your name be holy and set apart. Let us set apart this very magical incantation of your name. See, that's not obviously what it's talking about. It's saying, look, let your reputation, let your authority, let your identity be set apart and holy. You see how that really encompasses it in a much more full way? It makes a lot more sense. And so this is why we get, one of the purposes of this teaching was to deal with when we ask in his name and do in his name, it really has nothing to do with how you pronounce it, as far as that you have to get it exactly right. Now, if you know a certain name is absolutely not his name, like his name is not the Lord. The Lord is not a name. Okay, we also know Yeshua's name is not Jesus. His name wasn't Jesus. So we know certain things that it's not, so you can avoid those things. Now, we can always debate over, is it Yeshua, Yahshua, Yehoshua, and all that kind of stuff. And so these things, we can go and argue all you want, but at least we're trying to pronounce a name that we know at least is close to his name. But what we're talking about here in the model prayer, it says, look, our fathers in the heavens, let your name, let your reputation, let your authority, your identity, all that is you, be set apart. Be holy, be kadosh. Our Creator is about as legalistic as it gets. And let's understand that to be clear. Everything he does and everything he expects, he does legally. That sort of fits into the idea of legalism, doesn't it? I can feel an in focus coming on. Okay, this is what legalism is all about. He expects everything that he does to be done legally, and he expects everything you do to be in line with the law, to be done legally. So when people ask you in the future, what are you, a legalist? You say, well, absolutely, aren't you? The word name here again, when he says, look, we've done these things in your authority, in your name, that's what they're saying. How could you not know us? I mean, we did this stuff in your authority. Well, there's a difference between him giving you authority and you claiming to have authority under him. And there's way too many people out there claiming to have his authority who he gave no such authority. Fathers are going to deliver up children. Brothers are going to deliver up brothers. Children are going to deliver up parents. Why? He says, because we have a wrong name? Because of how we pronounce the name? Or is it going to be because you will be hated for my authority's sake? In other words, because you choose to submit to my authority, you choose to identify with who I really am, you choose to try to come in line with all that, this is what's going to get you hated. This verse is saying, look, you're going to have family members, and a lot of you have family members like this, who have attacked you, have cut you off, have written you off, have besmirched your name in every possible way because you have chosen to submit to his name or his authority. You have chosen to identify yourself with the true Elohim and not the false representation. So you've linked yourself with that identity. You've linked yourself with that reputation, authority, with who he is, and you've chosen to be owned and belong to that particular identity. And so we have family members that hate us for this, revile us for this. I don't know why this just came to my head. You know the song, Wasted Away in Margaritaville? You're going to be like, I can't believe the rabbi actually brought that song into a sermon. But if you notice in the song, in the beginning, he blames everybody else. Until finally at the end of the song, he realizes it's my own fault. Do you understand what I'm saying? Okay? And that's kind of where we are when we get put into trouble. First thing we do is lash out and blame everybody for our misery until we finally end up looking in the mirror and say, I've seen the enemy and it's me. I confess that Yeshua is Lord and Master. He's the walking, talking Torah. He is the teacher, the lawgiver who was at Mount Sinai and gave us the law. I confess all of those things. He says, that's what he says. If you do all of that, not just saying he's Mashiach, he is Mashiach because, we talked about this in one of the earlier parts, you can't be delivered from something that someone put you in except by the person who put you there. So I confess that it's Yeshua, that's the Yahweh of the Old Testament, that put us where we are. And so he, of course, is the only one who can deliver us out of what we are in. If you never learn to honor authority, which is what the fifth commandment's all about, then you have no honor and respect either, in essence, at some level, for Yeshua and Yahweh. I guarantee it. If you never learned it, how could you possibly all of a sudden just snap it into place? And it needs to be across the board. It's not, well, I choose to honor only who I choose to honor. He said, whatever you bind and loose, whatever you go ahead and do and agree, when two or three are coming together on any matter, he says, my Father in the heavens is going to do it. He says, only though, if you are to gather together in my authority. If I have not given you the authority, you have no authority to bind or loose anything. So let's be careful with that whole thing about being gathered together in his name, in his identity, in who he is, in his fullness. There I am in your midst. And that's why, by the way, that's why the Father does it, because Yeshua is in the middle of it, not because you did it. Imagine Moshe was your rabbi. Do you think he's going to be having lunch with all of you and just being the socialite of all time, just hanging out and being just... I don't think so. You know why? Because he knew that this was life and death. And you know what? Hopefully you understand that I know it's life and death. And that I speak what I speak because I'm crying aloud and sparing not, because I don't want you to die. Do you understand that that's my cry? That it breaks my heart that you guys... There's too many people just wanting to be coddled. Grow up. I mean, I hate to be so blunt. Because some of you that need to be coddled, who are acting like you need to be coddled, are in your 60s, in your 50s, in your 70s, and you know, enough is enough. This isn't a game. Okay, this is no game. This is life and death. Yeshua came to bring a sword. If you're not paying attention, you're going to get sliced up. But you know what gets me in the most trouble? And all the other teachers out there, if they're actually playing hardball like they should, is that people don't want consequences. It's not fair that there's consequences to what I've done. And then they get all mad at me that there's consequences. I'm sorry, see this book? This book should be renamed Truth and Consequences. Remember the show? Okay? It's the truth in here, and it tells you what the consequences are if you obey or disobey or disregard or callously handle, or if you seriously handle the truth. It tells you what will happen. Truth and consequences. And that's what I see going on in here, is that we all want the truth, but we don't want the consequences. What consequences? I mean, like the consequences of casually dealing with the truth. Oh, does it really matter if I do this or if I do that? Oh, he knows my heart and all this other things that we lie to ourselves with.